Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. My name is David and today we are going to be starting our new series of videos for the summer called FPL Scout Reports, where we are going to be looking at players who are new to the league, or in some cases players who have joined a Premier League club from another Premier League club, all with the idea of assessing what impact that is going to have on FPL for the new season. Now, I have to say that these videos are naturally, as is often the case, inspired by a series of articles that we've already got started on fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. My good friends Neil, Tom and Mark in the editorial department do a great job of this content every summer, and they've already begun because we've already started to see a few transfers tickle through, ready to go through when the transfer window officially opens. And so before we get started, then I would just love to point you guys to the website where you can read these articles and find even more detail on some of these players than we'll be able to go to in this video. And also have to also point out that the pre-season page is now live as well. Now this is your absolute Bible for preparing for the new campaign. If you go to the website, go to the very top on the tabs and look for the 23-24 pre-season guide. It breaks down into every single team and will tell you the ins, the outs, scout reports on the new players, also an assessment of their pre-season games, which is very, very important. The pre-season minute spreadsheet is ready and raring to track all of that. Famously discovered Aaron Wan-Bissaka before it was cool, when he was a 4 million defender, and of course that man behind me, Mr. John Lundstrom as well. So if you want to find those guys before the new version of those guys before your friends do, then that is the place to go. Now, where you will also find our first scout report. And so let's get underway with our first new name of the summer. And it is, of course, Mark Flekken, who has joined Brentford for about £11 million. And it's all in the context of David Raya is probably going to be leaving the club. He hasn't left yet. There's no confirmation that he definitely is, but it seems quite likely. And so we are here today to answer the question, is Mark Flekken the new David Raya? Of course, David Raya had a very good FPL campaign, so a replacement for him would be very nice for fantasy Premier League managers. And so the question is, can he establish himself as the first choice at Brentford, and can he have a big impact on FPL and be useful for fantasy managers? Now, before we go any further on Mr. Flekken, just want to point you back to Fantasy Football Scout's website. This video today is very much fueled by some research that Mr. Mark Jobling has put into one of the articles there. So go and have a read of that when you've finished watching this video for even more information. So let's start off with the history of Mark Flekken then. Start off with a history lesson. Now, the interesting thing is about him is that he is a bit of a late riser to just top level goalkeeping. Because, in between sort of 2016 and 2018, he was playing in the lower leagues in Germany. So he was at MSV Duisburg, who 2016-17 season, they were in the third tier. Then they got promoted and played in the second tier. Did okay at this level. 80 goals conceded across those two campaigns. So an average of about 40 goals conceded. 21 clean sheets across those two as well. Kept more clean sheets at the lower level. But it's very difficult to read too much into that. And it's probably also very difficult to read into some of the crazy things that went on when he was playing for these clubs, because he actually scored for Duisburg once upon a time. And it was a back heel as well, so very cheeky, so clearly very good with his feet. So if you're looking for a goal-scoring goalkeeper, guys, this is the one to go for. But yeah, it's very difficult to read too much into that, of course. Probably also very difficult to read into another moment where he went quite viral. Which was when he was at Duisburg. He was involved, and I don't know if any of you guys remember it, the FIFA-style gaming glitch, where his team had scored, the goal music started playing in the stadium, so he naturally turned around to go and have a little bit of a drink and sort of take on some fluid, and the goal music kept on playing despite the fact that the goal was disallowed, so he didn't notice it was disallowed, and as he turned around and stood like this behind the line in the goal, the other team came forward and scored. And he just had no idea. He wasn't ready. But let's put all that behind him because you fast forward about 5 or 6 years and he is now competing at the top level. But as I said, it's taken quite a while because He was actually originally signed at Freiburg to be the sort of the understudy to his predecessor Alexander Shvolov in 2018, and had a bad injury as well. And so between 2018 and 2021, actually only played 21 matches in the league. So only conceded 21 goals in the league after playing about 14 matches and kept 3 clean sheets. So it doesn't make for a particularly exciting reading until the most recent 2 seasons, where he really has established himself as just one of the best goalkeepers in the Bundesliga at the ripe old age of 30. He is basically integral to this team now. Freiburg are actually doing very well as well. They are very much up and coming in the Bundesliga. They've been in the Bundesliga for a while, a little bit, quite established. But last 2 seasons they finished 6th and then 5th, and they only just missed out on the Champions League, which is a big shame. But that's the sort of level that they're aiming at. Did well in the Cups as well, semi-finalists and runners-up last 2 seasons in the main DFB Pokal Cup, and they made it to the last 16 of the Europa League. So they're competing at a pretty high level, and you have to say, no disrespect to Brentford, their aspirations are just a little bit higher. Just missed out on the Champions League, where Brentford were sort of outside hope of something, maybe a bit less than that in the Premier League, and done very well in the Cups as well. So by no means have Brentford just plucked this guy from, it's a middling Bundesliga team. This was a big signing for them, really. And in terms of his contribution to that then, equally impressive. So about 80 goals conceded across the last 2 seasons. He's averaging about 40 goals conceded across those 2 campaigns. And clean sheets-wise, 23 in total across those 2 campaigns. The second of those, the most impressive, 13 clean sheets that he kept in 22-23, which is actually the highest in the Bundesliga. And when you think that this is a league that traditionally has been dominated by Bayern Munich, it's quite impressive. It's quite impressive to get that stat. Now, Bayern have obviously had a bad year and still won, as they always do, but it did come down to goal difference, of course. But yes, an impressive stat to get those the most clean sheets in the Bundesliga. And, as we sort of already mentioned as well, a bit of a late riser in his career. He's 30 now, but his recent form has been so good that despite, not being a spring chicken in footballing terms, he has earned 4 international caps for the Netherlands. So well done to him. But of course, he's been achieving all of that in a different league. And so we need to find ways when assessing whether or not he's going to be good for FPL to see if we can equate what he can do to what Brentford are looking for and the way that they play. So let's have a look at Flekken's playing style. Now, he himself describes himself as a ball-playing goalkeeper, and it would appear, based on what we can see in front of us now, that whoscored.com, which is one of my favourite places to go to have a look at detailed information about players who don't play in the Premier League, it looks like they agree on that. They like to break players down into strengths and weaknesses, and what we can see on the screen is that the 3 strengths for Flekken, according to whoscored.com: long passing, shot stopping, so reflexes, and saving close range shots. He's actually got nothing in his weaknesses box, which is, it's an impressive CV on whoscored.com. But I know what you're thinking. All those 3 strengths, they do sound very like David Raya. So that's good to know. It could be a bit of a like-for-like swap if Raya was to leave. He might not, but if he was, then Flekken very much looks like a like-for-like replacement. So that's a general overview of his playing style. Let's see how that worked out in terms of his actual goalkeeping achievements for the most recent season, so the last 2 then. So, his save percentage of 73.8% for Freiburg in the 21-22 season was actually the second best in the Bundesliga. Only Stefan Ortega, now a Manchester City player of course, only he got a higher save percentage than Flekken the season before the one that's just finished. Now, goalkeeping in the Bundesliga presumably went up a notch this season because Flecken's save percentage went up to 74% for the most recent campaign. But it's actually only the 4th highest this time out. But either way, very much one of the in vogue goalkeepers in the Bundesliga when it comes to making those saves for Flekken. So again, all points towards this guy being, a worthy signing for Brentford. And what we can also look at is XG goals prevented stat as well. the save percentages, there's only so much we can read into that because of both teams will have conceded different amounts of shots, kind of aiming at different areas of the table. Freiburg pushing Champions League, Brentford probably at the start of the season we're probably thinking mid-table finish would be what they're aiming for, and anything outside of that's kind of like a bonus. And so, the games that they've played would have been very different. So there's only a small amount we can read into comparing those two percentages. To just point out that David Raya's save percentage is that a little bit higher. XG goals prevented is an area that I think is a good way of testing the ability of these goalkeepers. It's a stat that assesses the quality of the shots that a goalkeeper has faced and compares that with how many goals they've conceded. So you've got the expected goals total that they should have conceded and the goals they did concede or didn't concede. So if you've got a plus figure for that, then it means that you are stopping more goals than you have any right to. So they're the goalkeepers that are making the big saves to the big high XG shots. Then any goalkeepers that have a negative here, they're the poorly performing goalkeepers, the ones that are conceding lots of goals that they shouldn't be conceding, in effect. And so, on that particular stat, Flekken's actually doing quite well according to FBref. And so, in 21-22, plus 1.7 and plus 2.4, which basically means that Flekken has been keeping out more goals than he was expected to, based on the quality of the shots that he faced. And already said that Raya had the higher save percentage of the two over the last two campaigns, but Flekken was better than Raya for XG prevented in 21-22. Raya was better in 22-23, but it was close. So the point is, these figures are all in the sort of same ballpark. We've got a guy who's clearly a very good goalkeeper and is capable of making saves which actually earn clean sheets, stopping these goals that should be going in. So it all looks very promising. So let's have a look at the context for the rest of the club then. So there's a couple of questions to assess here. We're going to look at the goalkeeping situation as a whole, and then we'll also have a look at Brentford's defence as well, which will pull in a little bit of what we've just talked about there in terms of Flekken's individual playing style. So, what you would expect, as we've already talked about, is we would be expecting that Raya is probably going to be leaving Brentford. He still has 1 year left on his contract. And, publicly, Brentford are probably going to try and play hardball with this guy. But, as we all know, in football, you've got 1 year left in your contract. A club is usually very of the mind that we need to sell him now so we can get some money now, especially when stock for Raya is very high. Because, of course, if he potentially has a season, if he stays at Brentford and he has a poor season next year, then he's going to leave on a free or, would potentially leave for cheap in January or something. So now is the time for Brentford to sell Raya if they're going to. He's linked with big clubs. So all of this is sort of based on the assumption that he's going to be going. Now, he could be staying. We just have to see. So what would that leave behind then is the question. Flekken has been brought in. We all kind of assume he's the replacement, but we do have to remember that there is a guy at the club who might turn around and be like, hold on a minute, what about me? And that is Thomas Strakosha, who weirdly was the number one at Lazio and then came to Brentford to just be the backup and basically hasn't played there's no league appearances for him. But either way, he was the number one at Lazio, hardly a small-time club, so, played in Europe as well. So he very much is a good quality goalkeeper, and it's entirely possible that maybe he's the new number one if Raya were to leave. And the thing about the quotes from Thomas Frank is they don't necessarily give much away. It'd be very weird if you turn around and said Raya's definitely leaving, Flekken's going to start. But, what he said was, we're very happy to have signed Mark. He's a player with a lot of quality who will strengthen our goalkeeper group. He was a big part of the team there, and now he's coming to us and will hopefully make the group better and the team better. He's a very good shot stopper and comfortable with the ball at his feet. His distribution is very impressive. So we already touched on that, didn't we? That distribution. And, Thomas Frank very much aware of that as well. Now, what happens from this point, it's worth just mentioning that pre-season is going to be really important here because we're going to be thinking about things like who's playing, where Raya is, etc. We'll come back to that in a minute. Just a quick word then on Brentford's defence. So in terms of that wider Brentford context, we've talked about who else is at the club who could rival him for a spot. What about their defence then? So their defence had a very interesting 22-23 campaign. They conceded the second most shots on target but only allowed the fourth fewest big chances. So 197 shots on target that they faced. Only 67 of those were big chances. Now, actually, no team in the whole Premier League had a bigger difference between those two numbers, which is the absolute cornerstone reason why Raya made lots of saves from poorer, non-threatening shots. And so that helped him get to 154 saves, which is the best in the league. And the best for save points as well, 39, and the best for goalkeeper bonuses, 20. And so that playing style of Brentford is really, really important here. It means whoever's going to play in goal for Brentford is going to be in that absolute FPL goalkeeper sweet spot, whereby they allow lots of shots, so therefore saves. They do a very good job of limiting the quality of those shots, so therefore higher chance that those saves are going to be made, and of course higher chance you get a clean sheet. Then throw in the fact that Thomas Frank likes his goalkeeper to make passes. Ray has done that. Flekken historically has done a good job of that. And then you're going to get all of those things to draw upon for fantasy points. And so whoever does actually start in goal for Brentford, if they continue in their same style, which you'd expect they would because it's been very successful this season and kind of looks like that team is very much going to stay as it is, and any of the changes or any of the departures look like they're going to be fairly minimal at the moment. Anything can happen in the transfer window, of course. So that brings us all the way back round to the question, is Flekken worth buying for FPL? Now, lots of factors to consider here, some of which you may already know the answer to if you're watching this video, and it's after we know what's happened with Raya, it's after fixtures, after pre-season, after the game launch. So they're all the different factors that will decide whether or not he's worth buying. So firstly, let's start off with the transfer situation. If Raya is to leave, then of course, absolutely Flekken is someone that is worth considering. If Raya is to stay, probably not, because I think Raya's very much got that place locked down. But if Raya were to leave, we've already talked about that other goalkeeper, what impact he's going to have on this goalkeeping situation. That is where the Fantasy Football Scout pre-season page is going to be really, really important for you guys, because that will tell you who is playing the most minutes for Brentford over the summer. So without wanting to sound like a broken record, keep an eye on the pre-season page, bookmark it, and keep checking that pre-season minutes spreadsheet to tell you which of those two goalkeepers is playing the most. The second factor in the question, is he worth buying for FPL, is going to be fixtures. Now, when you are watching this video, it might be after those fixtures have released, but at the time of recording, I'm recording this on the 9th of June, the fixtures are 6 days away. They come out on the 15th of June. And if you're watching this before that date, I would just like to make sure you guys all know that we will be streaming live at 9 a.m. on Thursday the 15th of June, reacting to those fixtures and picking out the best ones. If Brentford has some really nice fixtures at the start of the season, then, and in a world where Flekken is playing more in the pre-season, then he's absolutely worth considering. Now, the final thing, of course, is price. You may well be watching this video after the game's launched. At the moment, it hasn't, and so we don't really know what his price is going to be, and that's where the Raya situation is just going to come back in one final time. Best case scenario is that the game launches before Raya leaves the club. Now, Raya is probably going to have a price boost because he's done very well this season, and you expect him to probably be a 5 million goalkeeper. 5.5 seems too expensive, 4.5 seems too cheap, based on the way that he's played this season and how popular he was. So, if he stays, he's going to be 5 million. Now, if he's going to stay, he's going to be 5 million. He's going to be the first choice goalkeeper at Brentford. Then FPL would probably have to price Flekken and the other goalkeeper at 4.5, because it would just be silly to have Strakosha and Flekken at 5 million with Raya also 5 million when we know that Raya would be number one in that context. So if the game launches before Raya leaves, then they just kind of have no choice to put it that way around. And so then if Raya were to then leave after he's been priced at 5 million and after Flekken and Strakosha have been priced at 4.5, then all of a sudden, brilliant, we would have, I would expect, a 4.5 starting goalkeeper at Brentford again, and then just use the pre-season to see which of those two is the one to go for. Now, if the game launches after Raya has left the club, then we're in a slightly trickier situation, because FPL Towers would probably feel like they need to have the Brentford goalkeeper at 5 million because of how well that defence performed last season, and not knowing which of those two, because the game is going to launch the pre-season fixtures, so the Premier League won't know which of the two is the number one. They would probably have to price both Strakosha and Flekken at 5 million if Ray is already gone, because one of them is going to be the number one, but you just don't know which one, so you just have to But he hands up and say it could be either of them, so it's going to be 5 million each. That's what I would expect. So it's very much dependent on that Raya transfer saga. Fingers crossed that the game launches before he goes, because then we're going to get one of these guys cheaper. But the thing is, if Flekken or his competition, Strakosha, are going to be 5 million, is that necessarily a bad thing for FPL? I'm not entirely sure, because whichever of them starts is going to be in a defence that is absolutely primed and ready to once again provide that sweet spot of goalkeeping returns, a bit like the Burnley of old. Lots of shots conceded, but limiting the quality of those shots so that the save percentage is going to be strong, the volume of saves is going to be high. Throw in the fact that there's actually even more distribution here for this goalkeeper than we ever saw with Pope at Burnley, so it's kind of a bit like a new and improved Burnley of old, because there's that pass completion percentage that will also contribute to bonus as well. Now, that is great. That is what we want to see from a fantasy Premier League goalkeeper, and some people are willing to pay 5 million for it. I'd much rather pay 5 million for a good goalkeeper in a defence that allows lots of shots than I would pay 5 million for a good goalkeeper in a good defence at a lesser top 6 club, like we've seen Lloris and De Gea at 5 million before. Those teams concede fewer shots, and therefore just all of those little extras that you get around the edge for these goalkeepers just completely go away. And so 5 million is a price that I would in theory be willing to pay for a Brentford goalkeeper, but it will probably depend on the prices of everybody else, and this is why this is all, of course, reliant on the game launch, because I might, after I've picked all my premiums, because we don't know how expensive Haaland's going to be, I might find out that I don't have enough money for a 5 million goalkeeper, and if there's no Brentford goalkeeper at 4.5, then possibly going to have to go elsewhere. So, unfortunately, lots of unanswered questions about Flekken ahead of the new season. But hopefully, this video has helped prime you with the questions to be asking yourself, so that when the answers surface, you can make that informed decision about whether or not he's worth having an FPL and whether or not he can be the new David Raya. Hopefully this video was helpful, and as I said, if you want to find out more information about Flekken and his FPL credentials for the new season, do head to fantasyfootballscout.co.uk and check out Mark's article. There will be more articles and more videos exactly like this for most of the summer, as we get new players joining Premier League clubs and Premier League players switching from one club to another. I would be remiss in my duty if I didn't also remind you to like this video, subscribe to the Fantasy Football Scout YouTube channel, and also hit that bell notification over the summer when there's no deadlines, reminding you every week that you've got to check out the content. The bell notification is going to be more important than ever, because it will help you see when there is new content, and of course there will be plenty of it. So I'll leave you fine folks to enjoy the rest of your summer, and I will see you next time.